Welcome to Unbreakable Spirit, Stories of Inspiring and Thriving, with Jennifer Seven, co-author of a book that is part of the Sisterhood Folios, a #1 international bestseller. This is a podcast about real women who've overcome tremendous obstacles and come out on the other side to thrive. Whether their hardships were financial, relational, or health, these women dug deep and found the light out of the dark to rise from the ashes, to find the ability to forgive, to love, and to live an authentic, joyful life. Now, here is your host, Jennifer Seven.
Welcome, Unbreakable Spirit listeners, to our latest episode. And I have an amazing guest today. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about her, and then we're going to jump right into her story. So I am so excited to have Contessa Akin here with us today. And she's actually an emotional well-being coach. She helps women find love and peace in life. Through her signature Phoenix process, she provides a structured journey to sustainable healing. She understands the challenges women face because she's been there herself, and she's going to be sharing some of her story today, which is pretty deep stuff. With over 10 years of experience helping thousands of women overcome their pasts, Contessa is committed to helping you become the best version of yourself so you can feel better too. Welcome, Contessa. So excited to have you here.
Thank you. Oh gosh, I like hearing all that come out of your mouth. I'm like, wow, I'm kind of cool.
Yeah, you are so cool.
I like it.
Yeah, super excited. I can't wait to hear your story. I mean, I read a little bit in your bio, and wow, I just think you've been through a lot in your life, and I'm so grateful that you're willing to share and that you're doing this great work of helping others. So take us back in time, Contessa, and start wherever you want to start in your story.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and preface all this with I'm an emotional person, which means, I'm an emotional well-being coach. I'm emotional. So sometimes I may cry. So just, leave space for that for me.
Absolutely.
But so going back in time, it's always hard to know where to start with my story, really, because ultimately my biological mother did not want me or my younger sister. So at 3 years old, she left us on the side of a highway here in Dallas. And okay, so this is a bad part of the story, but a fun part of the story. So
okay.
I'll drop it in there and then I'll circle back around. But so when she left us on the side of the highway, I don't remember much, right? I was just 3 years old.
Yeah, so
but I
little.
do remember a motorcycle police officer who was on the side of the road with us, who had taken us down into the median and was giving us like teddy bears and stickers and stuff like that. That's really all I remember about that moment. So that's an important detail for a little bit later on. It'll get
okay,
fun.
but hang on, because I got to ask. So how old was your sister?
2. So we're
wow.
We're really close in age. Yeah. So 2 and 3 years old. And I also have a half sister, and don't quote me on this, but I think she was 7 or 8 at the time, but she kept her and left us.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. So, and then she did come back into our lives. I was 6 years old, and she facilitated rape by a stranger. I didn't know him. She was leaving for work and happened to invite them in. We were there, left us there alone with them for no good reason.
And how old were you then?
I was 6 years old.
Oh my God. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. And my half sister watched the door while it was happening. So and your brain is really awesome. Right? It does lots of great things to protect you. And in that moment, I don't remember a lot about the moment, but I do remember looking up and seeing her in the doorway, basically like standing guard, if you will. And then let's see, I'll jump forward to 9 to 11 years old. I had a stepbrother who loved to play God. So he would stop my breathing and bring me back to life and then sexually assault me.
Oh, and was he doing that by choking you?
So he would do several things. He would like trap me, smother me, things like that. Yeah. So like right now, even my kids, sometimes when we go like to Costco on a weekend, which I avoid at all costs usually, I'm like, nope, I can't handle that. I feel trapped. I need to get out of here. I need to like get to space. So space is like super important to me. So yeah, let's see, where am I at in the story? I'm giving you like Cliff Notes.
Yeah, because there's a lot.
There's a lot going on there. Yeah. I actually was kicked out of my house when I was 16 years old.
This is the house where you're with your mother still?
No, so she only came back into my life when I was 6, and then I had
She
to
was
go
gone
through the
again.
whole court process, and
Okay.
the guy
I
went
was
to
I was gonna say, how is she even allowed in your life?
yeah, I don't really know what happened to her at that time, and I don't know that it was like ever linked that she like helped
With
facilitate that. And I don't remember, right? I was 6 years old. I don't remember a lot even going into the police station, but I do remember like bits and pieces. Like I was talking to a detective in the office, and I had to go in by myself, and I remember thinking,
oh,
I don't want to do this. I don't.
oh. Well,
And
I'm
I
just
walked in.
amazed. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting, but
Oh,
I'm
you're
just
fine.
amazed she didn't end up in jail from abandoning you on the street.
Yeah, there's lots there. Yeah, right, for sure. But in the police station, right, I remember going into the room not wanting to by myself, and there was the detective there, and I remember only being able to see like his tie and his belt, like that area there. He
Yeah,
had no
because you were
face.
so
He had
little.
nobody. Yeah, there was 2 pictures there because there were two men in the apartment at the time, and I remember him asking me just point to the one who did harm, and I just remember standing there like holding my finger, like biting on my finger, not wanting to point to the picture. I felt so responsible for the bad
Oh,
things that were going to happen to him as a result, right?
yeah.
My young brain at that time, it's such a beautiful thing. But I did point to the picture, and I remember my finger just kind of fell on it really heavily, and I felt so incredibly guilty.
And probably
Uh,
scared,
I
right?
was
Because like, what's
I
going to
don't remember
happen?
feeling scared, but I felt this responsibility, like I was the one that got him in trouble. And then
Mm-hmm.
I felt guilty for being that person.
Mm.
And then guilt was something that really ruled my life for 40 years after that. We can talk about that later if you want to, but yeah.
Well, so okay, I gotta ask. So at that point, were you in foster care? Because
No, so my biological dad was a truck driver, and
okay,
so he just wasn't in town at that time or whatever. I don't know the circumstances, but had come and picked us up, and I have a paternal grandparent who would take care of us, and then he also remarried, so I had a stepmother after that, and
okay.
she was pretty nasty as well.
Mm.
Yeah, she used to chase me around with scissors and threaten to cut my hair, and you have to wear this long skirt to school so that your friends will reject you instead of wearing the like in clothes or whatever. Yeah, like she was kind of nasty
Yeah, sounds
for
like it. So
sure.
yes, that was her way of humiliating you and
Yeah,
sending you off to school that way.
yeah, which was always fun because all of this, like, I'm super rebellious. So, and I, of course, made friends with a super rebellious crowd. So they always had clothes for me. So if
Oh, that
I
yay.
ever showed up in a long skirt, they were like, here's some pants, here's some shirts. It was like they
Oh,
always had a
they
stockpile.
had your back.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see, where am I in that story? I guess
Okay,
we'll
wait,
have,
let me back
yeah,
up so that
go
I can
go
just
for
make
it.
sure I've got this. So
Yeah.
so you're 6 years old, you had this horrible rape happen to you, and
Yeah.
this is while you're in your dad's home or you're in your
So I'm in his care and custody. So we were just visiting her.
okay, so visiting. And
Mhm.
then so how did that end up getting reported? I mean, because you're
Well,
6,
because
right? Because I
yeah, my body showed the signs of that.
okay,
I
okay.
didn't know. I mean,
Well,
my
sure you
brain again
didn't.
still super protective. So I just remember this. My stepmother at the time had pulled me aside and had asked me like where the blood came from my clothing, that kind of stuff.
Oh,
And I remember even still feeling like super jittery, like my body was still in a state of shock at that point. And so she asked me if
okay.
anybody had hurt me, and I just simply said yes. And then it kind of took off from there. But yeah, actually, damage to my bladder had happened. So I had to have
Mm,
surgery on my bladder shortly thereafter, which still causes me problems to today. Like, I
yeah.
literally just went to the hospital today to have, just another checkup for my
Oh,
bladder. But yeah,
yeah. A lot of trauma, a lot of physical trauma,
yeah, a lot of
as well
physical,
as the emotional. Okay,
right?
so you have to go to the police station, you have to report him. Does he go to jail, this guy?
Yeah, as far as I know, he did go to jail.
Okay. There's some justice in that. Okay, so then you're still in the house with your stepmom, and then you've got the stepbrother situation,
Right.
which is terrible and horrible.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they called me a fighter, right? So everything I did was all about fighting back. I fought I fought kids at school. Kids would be walking down the street and I would start a fight with them. Like I was a really, really angry little girl because of it all. Ultimately,
Yeah.
when I look back now, I would have never said I'm angry because of that stuff. I just knew I was angry.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always in this perpetual state of there was danger that was going to come for me.
So you had to be in
So
that
I had to
fight, not flight or freeze. You were in the fight mode.
In the fight mode. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I went in the military. Look, we're going to fast forward, I guess, a little
Okay.
bit. I'm 17 now and I would go in the military. This is like crazy ridiculous, right? I'm 17, which is you got to have parent permission to go into the military at 17.
Okay.
And my dad is like, heck yes.
Whatever.
Just under control, whatever. And then they had to go find my biological mother to get her permission. I was
really? Both parents had to. Yeah.
Because
I didn't know that.
Been in my life, so why would she need to give permission? Whatever.
Yeah.
But she did. She could have totally held me back, but she didn't. Not in that instance, anyway.
Yeah.
I was a jet engine mechanic on F-15s and F-16s.
Wow.
So it's kind of fun, like to see. I say fun, but it's probably not really fun. But I gravitated and felt more secure and safe around men versus women. And so I chose, going into this field that's completely male dominated. At one point, I was the only female on the flight line working on these airplanes, and I had a great time doing it. But I also was in this place where I was tapping into this masculine energy of myself, where I'm going to I'm like ready for a fight. That kind of masculine energy versus the softness and the femininity.
So none of those men better mess with you, right?
I will punch them. I will push back. I will fight. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I got out of the military. I met my husband. So here's where the circle comes around. My husband, when I met him, was a motorcycle police officer.
Wow.
Yeah. It gets better, right? So he's a motorcycle police officer, right? At 3 years old, motorcycle police officers who's taking care of me. But we realized when I took him home to visit my parents, my dad and my stepmom, they were telling stories. They like to tell stories about how bad of a kid I was, right? Because I was rebellious. And so he recalled an incident where he picked up a cute little 15-year-old teenage girl on the side of the road who had just fought her stepmother and was running away. It was me.
Oh my God.
It was his first police station, fresh out of the academy. And I was like one of the first interactions with the public. So it stood out to him because it was like one of the first for him.
Wow. That is, what do they call that? Not a coincidence. I was going to say serendipitous. There, synchronicity there.
Yeah. So, he had arrested me at that time and we've never had any contact after that. I went in the military, lived in Japan, moved around California before I moved back home, and then met him when I was working at a motorcycle shop.
Motorcycle shop. You were really into this mechanical stuff.
Yes, I love it. I still love it.
Good. Yeah. So how many years had gone by since that 15-year-old?
I think we met in 2001. So
not knowing how old you are, that
yeah, I'm like, wait a minute, let's do the math. I'm 45 now. I'm not good at public math. So in my early 20s somewhere.
Okay. So maybe 7 years or so, or 8 years from that 15-year-old to 10 years. Okay. Yeah. I was just wondering because that's really amazing.
Yeah. And so every time I get mad at him, I'm like, clearly I can't stay mad at him for long because he keeps coming into my life.
Yeah, as a person who saves you.
Right? Yeah. So we actually got together, and because of the rape, I was told I would never be able to get pregnant.
Oh no.
I got pregnant and I was in a state of shock because I thought that would never happen to me. So I'd already wrote off that was even a possibility, that I would never be a mom. I never even seen myself as a mom. I never even thought about what I wanted to be, like what that identity would actually be like, because I just knew what I didn't want to, because I didn't have to worry about it, right? I wasn't going to have kids.
So why not? Why even think about it?
Why even think about it? And so I had my son, who's 18 now. He's at Texas Tech. I had him 4 months later. I was pregnant again with my daughter.
Wow.
Yes. So I went
that was quick.
being told I would never be able to have kids to bam, bam, I'm having back-to-back babies.
What they call those Irish twins, right?
Yeah, me and my sister are the same. My birthday is July 15th. Hers is July 20th. So we're a year and 7 days apart. My kids are a year and a month apart. So
Oh.
it runs in the family. So then daughter, she's 17. She's going to college next year. Love her.
Aw.
I was not pregnant for about 5 months and I got pregnant again for the third time.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Is there such a thing as Irish triplets?
You're wrong. Unfortunately, that baby is not with us.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So he left this physical world and didn't get a chance to grow up with us. So there's another point of trauma there. But basically at that
loss.
point, I was at rock bottom. I am suicidal. I don't even know how to live. I don't even know who to be.
This is when they're babies.
Yes.
You have the babies, which may be
babies.
a little bit of postpartum
Depression
as well,
right.
but all this stuff in your whole life
just stacked up on top of each other. And now I'm just pretty much at rock bottom and I'm suicidal and I don't even know how to carry on a life. Like,
and what just strikes me in this is something about being a mom, because it was your mom that left you. I mean, you probably worked through all of this, but I'm just like,
yeah, I have now, but at the time I had not.
Right. No, I know. And I'm just thinking all of that, all of a sudden you've got children, you have to deal with it. And you weren't ever really parented right.
Right. And now I've got 2 babies that are completely dependent on me. And I don't even know what the heck to do or who I am or how to do anything. And so I was suicidal. I was actually 2 weeks away from taking my own life. I had a plan. I pretty much was just preparing the husband to take care of the kids and make sure that he understood what was happening. And then one day he sat next to me handed me the phone and it was suicide crisis hotline. And I was so mad at him.
Because once again, he's stepping in to save you.
Well, to get to the place of suicide, to have that plan, I really had told myself that I was invisible, that everybody would be better off without me. Nobody knew what was going on. I was concealing it well enough, but obviously I wasn't because he still seen me. So I was really angry because he was challenging the story that I had, and I needed that story to follow through with my plan. So I was really angry. I don't remember what the suicide crisis lady said to me. I only remember one question that she asked, and that was, "What is your plan?" And I remember this battle that I was having in my mind at that moment. Literally, I had one baby on one leg, and one baby had just pulled herself up on my other leg. And I'm on the phone with a lady asking me, "What's my plan?" And I don't want to tell her.
Right.
She's going to tell him, and then he's going to take away my plan. And so in that moment, like I was having that battle, but then underneath, I felt like a different battle was happening. I was saying, yes, I was having a plan to, yes, I'm doing this, or no, I don't have a plan. If I tell her that, then I'm going to have to make some different choices. So I was like, actually felt like in that moment, I was being forced to make the real decision.
Wow.
And I said, no, I'm here. Obviously, we're talking.
Yeah.
But then started the journey, like climbing out of this deep, dark hole that I found myself in. So yeah, here we are.
Wow. Yeah. So how did you dig yourself out?
Yeah. So from that place, it was really hard. And it was like, I felt like every moment of every day was a claw. Like I was like claw, like through mud and murk. And it felt like just this really giant force to propel myself forward. And it took a great deal of effort.
Energy, right? Because depression is like that, right? I mean,
and plus
obviously,
I'm taking care of 2 babies and like all my energy really went to them and I wasn't saving any for myself. And so it felt like this really heavy, like trudge forward that never felt like I was really gaining any momentum. And so I just kept reminding myself that I said no. That was the first thing that I kept doing.
So for some reason, you felt like you had to honor that no.
Integrity is one of my most important core values.
Oh, wow.
So, because I said no, I had to like live up to that, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't know what to do with my life, right? Just because I said no didn't mean I had all the answers all of a sudden. So I began starting, I mean, this is going to sound crazy, but I started going to, those like free seminars for like real estate or investments or whatever. I wasn't going there to actually get involved, but I was going there just to hear something different. Other than chatter that was happening in my own brain.
Yeah.
And so I just started hearing different things, interacting with different people. And ultimately I did like, what did I do? Oh, I started like one of those network marketing businesses,
Okay.
right? There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
like personal growth that happens inside of those. They're
Yeah.
all about like personal growth. And so I got a lot of personal growth from that, but I met a lady there who was like, look, I can see how you're like battling and you're still got depression and all this going on. So I've got something for you. And it just so happened to be a program here in Dallas that Dr. Phil started. And it was all about emotional well-being and just like being able to heal things. So I went through that program and felt super great after that. So I started volunteering there and I started helping other people ultimately. But through that is where I discovered that I do have a natural gift to be able to help people to see their pain more clearly than they can really see it themselves and where it's coming from. And so that's when I started coaching
Mm-hmm.
and trying to figure out like, what could I do to increase my skill set so that I could really be a support and a transformation change agent ultimately. I know that sounds like super corny, but
I like it.
but to help other people to come to climb out of their own holes, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, so at any point, did you seek therapy or medication to help you when you were at that really low place?
No. And the reason why is because I had already had such a negative experience with therapy that it was never a consideration at that point. It was like all on my own. I was doing it all by myself, like literally. I'm a fighter, right?
Yeah.
And so I was fighting that fight by myself, which ultimately made it take a really long time.
Yeah.
Um,
So were the negative experiences from when you were little? Did they
yeah,
put you in like mandatory therapy when you were
yeah,
little?
yeah,
And that
yeah.
was
And
not good. Not
school
good for you.
counselors.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it was never really a good experience for me. So I never considered it as a viable option.
Hmm.
I looked for alternative options essentially from the moment that I said no.
Yeah. I find that so fascinating that you were going to these workshops, like
Yeah.
but in a way they can be very motivational,
Mhm.
and
Yeah, I mean,
it's
I
a
did always leave there having this sense of like momentum behind.
uh-huh.
And it may not have lasted for a long time, but there was always another seminar that I could,
Yeah, and that
right?
it was something. It was
Yeah.
something,
It
right?
was
To get
like, yeah, it was like there was this line that I crossed where I was going to them and I was getting the motivation. But once this line crossed where I was like, ooh, now I got to get involved. I was like,
oh
okay.
yeah,
So
no.
now I'm starting to get better. So now those aren't the best place for me because it'd be easy to fall into that on all of them essentially
Hmm.
because they're really, really good at sales.
Yeah, yeah, getting
Ultimately.
you hooked in.
Yeah, which is where I, did join the network marketing company and then found the woman who
Really
connected me
helped
to
you.
that. Yeah,
Yes, you never know
where it's going to come from. Yeah.
where yeah, the
And
journey's
not,
going
and
to
I do,
go.
I guess I want to throw in a caveat here that I'm not against therapy. It was last year I was just in therapy and on medication, right? Like I believe that it definitely has a place and a purpose and can serve you. Yes.
Absolutely. It's just it's that place in that time
Yeah.
that was not your
That was not the
choice.
route that I was taking. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you're doing this well-being and this and found yourself on this journey to becoming a coach. So
Yeah.
let's talk about what you do. What do you do as an emotional well-being coach?
Oh my gosh, I help women feel better. Oh,
Yay.
yay.
I imagine that there are a lot of
Yeah.
women that need some
Yes.
help there.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, what I found when I was looking around and when I was helping people is that I seen how much weight that women carry and moms. Like, if you layer on mom on top of that, then there's an extra added weight to that, right? Like, we all have some sort of trauma that we've been through. Like, I'm just going to throw out a random number, so don't quote me here, but we're going to say there's 7 billion people on the face of the planet. That means there's 7 billion people who have experienced some sense of trauma. And to be clear, trauma is just an overwhelming life event, something that overwhelms your ability to cope, or your nervous system, right? So it can be a breakup. It can be, that you set a little kitchen fire in a stovetop. It can be that you witnessed a car accident, right? Like on some level, every single person has experienced
Okay, so
trauma.
it doesn't mean that it's an earth-shattering event.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like all the stuff that I went through, right? And it can be earth-shattering to them because it overwhelms their system, right? Like witnessing a car accident can be very overwhelming for somebody, but it's an indirect trauma. Like, for example, the Sandy Hook, when that was happening, my kids were much smaller. I was experiencing indirect trauma at that time because I was feeling so deeply with those parents, right? That it was affecting and overwhelming my own system, and I was nowhere near it.
I totally get that. I mean, with all these mass shootings, and it's very traumatic. And I remember when my kids were little, in the DC area, the Washington DC area, we had the sniper, and I don't know if you remember that.
I remember, yeah.
These two guys driving around in this car just randomly shooting people, and it was terrifying. Terrifying because it was so random, and you never knew where they were going to be. And it was like, I remember, I'm sorry because I'm getting on my own story, but there was a big thing about, we think they're in a white van with ladder racks. And so then every white van, I'm still like, white van.
Oh my gosh.
They were never in a white van, but that was like the only clue they had at that moment. And
I grew up, and I'm sure you know this, like every child abductor drives a white van with no windows, right? Like even still today, I will not park next to a white van.
No, but it makes my heart beat just thinking about that time, because we'd get out of the car, we'd go into the mall, and
you're always
down
on
and run and looking over your shoulder. You never knew. And just one more little trauma for, since we're on the subject, was there was a big fall festival just a couple weekends ago, and it hadn't been in a big crowd like that since COVID. So first off, I had a little PTSD from the whole COVID thing, but it was packed and the streets were just full of people. And I looked at my husband, I said, this would be a perfect opportunity for one of those crazy shooters, It just, that would never have gone through my mind, except for what we've been watching and seeing on the news these last few years. So yes, I get it. Okay, indirect trauma. It didn't happen to me, but I was still like, ooh.
It's still traumatic. Yeah. And when we experience trauma, we hold pain from that trauma unless you know how to process that and let it run its full cycle, right? So most people are stuck at this point of trauma, holding pain. And I just can walk around and see so clearly how people are holding on to their pain, and hurt people hurt people. And so like, it's just like this perpetual cycle. And so I just love to be able to step in, and especially with women, and just help them relieve themselves of that pain and process through it completely so that it's no longer a burden. And whenever they unburden themselves from the pain of their past, or not so past, then like they can take a deep breath and have space and show up in the way that's best for them. And I get to get a front row seat to all that. So,
and help get them there. And I've been learning too that these traumas can actually store in our physical body and make us sick. I had a guest on who was sharing that she was very, very sick, and some of this was, she had autoimmune diseases, and it was just this. So she was really focusing a lot on trauma work to release that out of her body, which
I suffered from migraines for a long time, and gut issues and stuff, and it was all from the pain that I was carrying as a result of the trauma that I had been through.
And I think this is so fascinating, and it's kind of, I mean, to me it's new. I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't really understand that that's what's happening, or that's what's causing it.
There's a book, it's called The Body Keeps Score.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I was going to look for the author name, but I don't have it off the top of my head.
All right. Well, maybe get that to me later and I'll put it in the show notes.
The Body Keeps Score. That'll help if anybody's curious about that. I'm sure the lady that you talked to probably had some recommendations, but The Body Keeps Score, if you want to know how your body keeps track of this trauma in your body physically, then that's a great book to start with.
To me, it's just, this is fascinating work that's going on. So you have a signature process, and it's called the Phoenix process, which, first off, I want to know why you called it Phoenix. I think I have an idea why, but
Yeah, ultimately, I call it the phoenix because, like I was talking about, especially as women, we tend to hold on to this pain and that manifests in so many different ways. And ultimately, if you think about like the story that I was telling you for myself, I felt like I was in this deep, dark hole, just in this constant state of pain. Didn't feel like there was any light at the end of the tunnel. And the process is all about just facing this pain, this aspect, long enough to kind of pluck out the work that we do, and we dive into that work. We burn shit to the ground that doesn't serve us. And then the phoenix part is we rise up out of those ashes, out of that hole with our genuine authenticity, our love, our light, our freedom, our peace, our space. I love space. I know I can't say it enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all about we're in this dark hole. So it's about rising up like a beautiful phoenix out of that.
That's what I was taking from that, because I love that idea of the phoenix rising from the ashes, because that's what we do. We
Yep.
are down in the depths of
Of hell.
everything, and
Yeah.
then we find our way out into the light. And I love that that's the work that you do. So just give me an example of what this work might look like if someone came to you. What
Yeah.
kind of
So,
what happens?
so the very first place that we start with is establishing safety. So what I find is most people don't even know what safety is, looks like, or feels like, because there's been this trauma. And so we're just on guard or in a state of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, right? And so you don't really know what safety looks like. So we start with establishing a sense of safety by connecting inwards to our own experience. And then the first thing, I say the first thing, but I guess everything's going to be the first thing. But then we do my timeline process. And this is where we face it. So we go back, kind of like what I just did, and go back into my timeline. And we are able to pluck out one of those instances that if we heal that, then we can heal a majority of what came after that.
Because what came after happened because of that first event.
Not necessarily
Well,
because
that's not exactly what I mean, but
it
just
tends to be a repeated pattern.
okay.
So we all have an event that happened, say a traumatic event. So it's like at 3 years old, I was left on the side of the highway. As a result of that event, I used to tell myself that I'm disposable. I'm just garbage. I'm unwanted.
Okay.
And so if you then go through your timeline forward from that, then you'll see that pattern is repeated throughout. And so we go back to the first place it showed up, heal that, and then that takes care of all the stuff that then comes after that.
Okay. So you don't have to go through every single little thing.
You don't even have to retell your story. You're right. We just need to go through our timeline to go back enough to be able to pluck out that one thing that when we heal that, it's like a domino. It takes care of all the other stuff, right? And like for me, I had several, right? Being abandoned, sexual abuse, rape, things like that, where there was couple of patterns that I was playing out throughout my life. But once I go back and take care of those, then all the stuff that comes after that gets taken down as well.
Yeah. And I have heard that from other women on this podcast, that repeating of those patterns that don't serve you, but you don't recognize it.
Yeah, because ultimately, and we'll stick with a 3-year-old, right? I'm unwanted. I'm just easily discarded, just a piece of garbage. I was essentially living that out loud through how I engaged with other people, how I treated myself, all that stuff. So it was a pattern, but you wouldn't have necessarily said it's because of that one event, right? Mm-hmm. You just knew that maybe you didn't have good self-care. You wasn't taking care of yourself, or you would please people before you would even do anything for yourself, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that's the kind of pattern that we're looking at that shows up that most people don't recognize, but then we attach it to an event and then we heal that event.
And how do you go about healing it?
So there's lots of different ways. This is kind of like where I have a giant toolbox of tools. So it kind of depends on where someone's at. But oftentimes what we do is we create a physical representation of that event and the pattern. And we have that in a physical form to work with versus it being this abstract, we're just talking about it out here. So kind of think about like play therapy for kids, right? Except for grown up.
Yeah.
Grown up. And so we take that and we really make it a physical representation of that event. And then,
Okay, but you got to give me an example, like
oh my gosh.
what kind of physical
Yeah,
thing? Like
yeah.
Play-Doh or a clay or
No, so like for example, being a piece of garbage. So I took literally a trash bag and then I was filling it up with all the stuff that I was doing to continue to play that pattern out. So anytime I didn't take care of myself, I would put something in the garbage to remind myself that I just played that pattern out again, right?
Okay.
And so then you get to this place where you're like, I'm dealing with this physical representation. I can't ignore it anymore. Not like you can in your thoughts or your emotions, right? I can't ignore it anymore. I'm ready to do something with it. And then, so some people like to burn stuff. I'm a big fan of fire. I also
me too. I think that's just such I love fire in a good way.
Yes. So I've had some people create like little, makeshift boats and set them on sail on lakes or rivers, things like that, burying them, just being able to then, you're ready to release it. So you put it in, you kind of do that in the way that's best for you. So it's kind of a personalized.
Kind of releasing it out into the universe or to the earth or to the sea or to the fire, to the ethers.
Whatever, yeah. And then you fill yourself up with the truth. Like for me, I am totally worthy. So then I work now on what does worthiness mean to me? What does it look like? How can I engage with that every day? And then kind of building that new pattern in. That's so one way. We do a lot of stuff, but that's just one way. We do memory reconsolidation stuff. We language patterns, empowerment work. We do all kinds of stuff. That was just one good example.
That is so interesting. And how long usually is the process? And I'm sure it's very individual, but
it is very individual. So I've had some people come in and complete the process, say in 4 months. I think the earliest somebody did it was about 4 months, and somebody took about 3 years. So it's a very personalized journey. Yeah. And that's why we also build in the other stuff like the memory reconsolidation. We do nervous system work, empowerment work, so that you are also like baby stepping your way to the sustainability part of all of this. Because what I found is there's a lot of things out there that are for healing, and you go through it and it seems kind of quick. And then, 6 months later, basically you're back to doing the same old stuff again. It doesn't necessarily.
It didn't really. Yeah. So I'm just fascinated. So what is memory reconsolidation?
Yeah, so I was just explaining this with my daughter just the other day. So you think about your traumatic events. You have an event. You have the memory associated with the event and the emotion that anchors that in.
Okay.
So think about like a fishing net. All of those connection points are made up of memories and emotions.
Okay.
Memories and emotions. And so kind of like what I was talking about where we go back in our timeline, you're taking one of those memories and the emotion associated with that, and you're healing that. And so when you do that, it's like a trickle down effect. It also kind of reconsolidates the memory so that you can have a different memory, if you will, to work off of, so that it creates a different emotion so that it no longer impacts you in the same way.
So it's no longer causing you that trauma.
Right.
Yeah.
So it doesn't trigger you anymore. Yeah.
So it's just another technique. And then what about the nervous system work? I'm curious about that too.
We do all kinds of nervous system work. We mainly work with the vagus nerve. It's the longest nerve that runs from your cranium down through your body. And it's all about getting your nervous system basically to calm down. So when you go through trauma, right, we got the fight, flight, fright, freeze, fawn. What are the I say it a whole bunch of different ways, so I don't remember how I was just saying it just now. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Okay, I said I write that down. And so it's about bringing your nervous system into a state of regulation, because when you're in this nervous system response of the 4 Fs, then I don't know if you've heard this, I'm sure you have, but when your nervous system responds like that, other parts of your body literally shut down. Like one of the first things to shut down is digestion. So I find that women who have trauma tend to also carry extra weight because they're stuck in this fight mode or flight mode. And so their digestion isn't working the way that it needs to. So we calm the nervous system down so that other parts of our body can start functioning more normally.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it's like an extreme stress response.
Yes.
Yeah. The cortisol's flowing, the adrenaline's flowing, and it just can't. We're not meant to stay like that.
No, we're not meant to stay like that. Even animals in the wild, like a zebra, right? They go into that flight mode when they're being attacked, but as soon as it's over, then they're back to a state of regularity. But for humans, we tend to stay in that heightened sense. So like you see this purple ball, that's my gorgeous ball. We do a lot of like massaging different points of our body with that, breath work, different sounding. Yeah, all kinds of stuff.
Oh, wow. This is so fascinating to me. I've not experienced or learned about this before. So that's why I keep asking all these questions, because this is really cool. So if someone wants to work with you, what is the best way for them to get in touch with you, and how would they do that?
Yeah, the best way is to go to my website. It's contessaakin.com. From there, you can connect with me socially. I have my email on there. There's free downloads. There's a blog with lots of resources that you can read and engage with. And no matter where you're at financially or emotionally, like, you can get started on the process today.
So lots of choices. So just spell that for our listeners.
Yeah. Yeah. It's Contessa, Contessa, Aiken, Akin.com.
Okay. And you also mentioned to me that you have a little special offer for our listeners.
Thank you. Yeah, I wrote a book, right? It's called Rebel Rising, and it has my story, kind of in a condensed version, but basically what you heard today. But then it also has the Phoenix process in there. So if you are ready to do something about it, but say financially you're like, I can't pay anybody just yet, but you can handle it, then get the book. It's going to be in the show notes, right? Like,
yes, it will.
You can go ahead and start the process. Go ahead and start the timeline process. Get your physical representation. It has the whole entire process in there, so you can get started on that. It really is for like that independent rebel soul who knows that they are ready to just start marching forward, and maybe they don't necessarily need a lot of extra support right now.
Okay, that's
now, if you are brand new to coaching or therapy, then it's not the best place to start. You can get the book and read my story, but the process may be a little bit too much. So just be aware of where you're at emotionally when you get the book, if you're ready for that or not. And typically people know, right? If you're reading it and you're absorbing it, you're ready. If you're reading it and like nothing's coming in, don't force it.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. So listeners, that will be in the show notes. There'll be a special link for you because you listen to Unbreakable Spirit, and you can get the book and get started on your own healing journey. Yeah. And then you can reach out to Contessa if you're ready for
that book. It also comes with no strings attached, right? You don't have to give me an email or nothing. You just get an instant download, click on the link, and it's yours. So
well, what a great gift that you are giving everyone. That's awesome.
Great way to show people that they can be safe. Safety and their safety, and being able to click on a link without having to give out too much information.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Contessa, I just can't thank you enough. This has been such an enlightening and interesting, fascinating conversation. And I'm so sorry you had to go through all of that. But as we love to talk about on this show, is that we do go through these really difficult things, but that there is a way to get to the other side. So just, it's an inspiration. You're inspirational. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Unbreakable Spirit. To learn more about Jennifer and her holistic weight loss approach, visit her website at 7company.com. That's the number 7company.com. And please join us for our next episode, where we'll hear from more women who overcame hardship and learned how to thrive.